Well, hello everybody. I'm Abby from Drop Bio Health, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's event on game-changing hacks for a healthy family with Amelia Phillips. Before we start, in the spirit of reconciliation, Drop Bio Health acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Creating healthy habits and routines can form the foundations of a strong and healthy family. However, as many of us know, sticking to these is not always so easy. Tonight, we welcome Amelia Phillips, who will dig into the psychology of habit formation and discuss how creating new, healthy, happy families can reduce stress and leave families feeling more harmonious. And if you want to discover the impact that your lifestyle might be having on your health across areas such as stress, nutrition, and energy, click on the link in our chat box to take our at-home finger prick blood test, Wellbeing, today. Rather than just talking about wellbeing, I actually wanted to give you a little sneak peek into the service that I recorded a bit earlier today. After you make a purchase and complete our lifestyle habits survey, we'll send you your at-home finger prick test kit. Once you collect and return your sample, we'll analyse the biomarkers related to your 7 core health areas in our accredited laboratory and provide the test results to your secure online dashboard. Let's look at your personal dashboard, starting with your age versus your survey-based age. In this instance, the youngest survey-based age shows that the members' current reported habits help to promote longevity. Looking at the journey, a single test is valuable in assessing your general health. It will also give you insight into which lifestyle areas you should focus on to improve your well-being. But when you take the tests over time, you get a much better understanding of how your body is responding to your habits. This page shows you how your blood test results and your daily habits scores are changing over time. It will highlight what areas of your lifestyle you should focus on based on the trends over time. On the sidebar, you can navigate through the specific health categories to access your detailed results. Looking at the stress detailed report, for example, you can see how optimal your biomarkers for stress are and how they compare to what you reported on the survey. Here's a list of the biomarkers analysed. When you're able to see how your habits are impacting your health, you can make more informed and better lifestyle decisions to maintain good health over the long term. Here, you can see further insights with personalised next steps based on your results and health resources to support you in this area. So that's a really quick sneak peek into wellbeing. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comments and we'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And as an added bonus, if you purchase Wellbeing after this event, you'll receive a free Healthy Snacks ebook from Amelia valued at $30 when you use the code Amelia at checkout. So today, as I mentioned, we're really excited to welcome the lovely Amelia Phillips to Drop Bio Health. Amelia is a registered nutritionist and exercise scientist, a TV presenter, trainer, and blogger passionate about helping women and their families lead healthy and fulfilled lives. She's also the host of the wonderful Healthy Her podcast and an all-round wonderful human being, if I do say so myself. Thank you so much for joining us, Amelia. It's so great to have you.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Abby, and thanks for the intro. And hi, everyone. Oh my goodness, how are we here at 6:30? Isn't this like peak hour? I'm imagining that you've all got kids running around, and hopefully you've been able to lock yourself in a room and you've got someone on kid duty. But yeah, thank you so much, Abby, for having me tonight. I'm so excited to meet everyone here and to chat about some game-changing healthy hacks.
Yeah, awesome. We can't wait to hear them. I'm sure some people are listening in as they're cooking dinner or doing whatever they're trying to do and get things going for the evening. It certainly feels like a short day today. It is the shortest day of the year, so extra pressure to get those kids into bed early for those with little ones. Amelia, we are going to jump into your talk really soon, but I wanted firstly just to ask a little bit about your career to date, and in particular why you've chosen to focus on supporting the health of women and their families.
Well, I've been in the health and wellbeing industry since I was 17 years old. I actually really started when I was 14, when I first joined a gym. So yeah, I've done a science degree, exercise science degree, a master's in human nutrition. I was a trainer for 13 years. I had a gym for 6 years, and then I was the co-founder of the Michelle Bridges 12-week body transformation, which really was this incredible, almost like a social research project, because we got to go really under the bonnet of, you know, over 1 million customers, where we got to see what made them tick, what habits were serving them, what habits weren't serving them, you know, how challenging it is to change habits that you've grown up with, but then how incredible the results are when you do. I've always specialized in women ever since, even when I was 17, you know, mums were my passion, and I'm now a mum of 4. I stupidly had 4 kids in 5 years. Silly mistake. I don't know how that happened, but too late. Can't send them back apparently. So I feel like I'm in this like interesting convergence of, I've, you know, done the research. I've done a lot of research. I've got the lived experience as a trainer, as an exercise scientist and nutritionist, but then I'm living kids right now. They're between 4 and 9. So I'm in the thick of it now. So there's no, you know, best practice, and it's just going to be best practice, because sometimes that just doesn't work, as you know, you'll hear tonight as we go through the tips. So I hope I bring some practical and real life elements, but it's going to be backed with the science and the research, you know, that makes me so passionate about it, because I do see the power of change and habit change, and that's my mission in life, is to share that to as many families as I possibly can.
I love that. And yeah, so inspiring and so prolific. Gosh, that's a lot. That's a lot. Kids, you know, 4 kids or not. So you certainly are doing a lot of great stuff. And I would encourage everyone to check out Amelia's website and social channels as well, which we'll put in the chat box as well. She's got some amazing articles and recipes and bits and pieces on her website, and that cookbook that we're going to be giving away to all wellbeing purchase as well, which is really exciting. So we're going to get back to you really shortly, Amelia, and you might want to start pulling up your prezzo, but I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping just to let everyone know in the audience, we love your questions. After Amelia presents, we're going to have a little bit of time to run through her questions, which is really awesome. So if you have any, please put them in the Q&A box below, and then I will read them out to Amelia at the end of her talk. But for now, I'm going to jump out. I'm going to let Amelia jump in, and let's listen to some game-changing hacks for healthy families.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks so much, Abby. And can I just say before I jump into this as well, guys, check out Drop Biohealth. I've been doing a lot of work in what's called the quantified self movement. So this is this kind of digitization of our health, whether it's through, you know, smartwatches, Apple devices, and what these guys are doing with the finger prick technology and the surveys combined, so that you get these 32 biomarkers, is absolutely incredible, and not just in health but also in anti-aging as well, and particularly with stress management, alcohol. It really is super fascinating. When I do another talk later on about weight management, I'm going to pull that in a lot more to talk about, but tonight we are focusing on our beautiful families. So as I'm chatting now, and I want to tell a quick story, I'd love you to pop in the chat box just so I can get a bit of an understanding of who I'm chatting to tonight. And Abby, I'm hoping you can help me with this. If you wouldn't mind popping in the age of your kids in the chat box. And also, I'd love you to pop in as well, basically a goal that you have, something that you'd like to do, a goal that you have that you would like to improve on. So I'd love you to pop in the chat box as well. I would like our family to get better at, okay? And it could be managing screen time. It could be exercising more. It could be having harmonious dinner times. It could be eating healthier. I don't mind what it is, but just while I'm telling a little story now, have a think about what your number one goal would be that you want your family to get better at. And we're going to keep revisiting that tonight. And Abby, maybe at one point you can jump in and let me know what some of those some of those are.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be running a couple of polls as well around those particular topics, Amelia. So I'll make sure I bring those back in to you at the right time as well, so you've got that information. But so far, we do have a poll up just asking if those who are in attendance have children, what age bracket they're in. We're fairly evenly split actually at the moment. 36% so far, 0 to 5, 27%, 6 to 10, 9, 11 to 18. And 18 plus 25%. But we'll do another poll shortly and have a look at what people really want to hear about today.
Okay, cool. All right. And I just want to also preface this by saying, by talking about best practice. Okay. Tonight, I'm going to be talking a lot of, best practice. But let me tell you, during lockdown, best practice isn't always the best way and the best fit for you. When I had lockdown last year, I had the 4 kids at home. I had 1 kid at preschool 3 days a week, thank goodness. Otherwise, I literally would have murdered someone. And I was determined to do everything best practice. 16 weeks of homeschooling. And I remember this one morning, I had my year 2 Lockie and my year 1 Charlotte next to me, and I just could not get both of their mathematical problems to work. And literally year 2 and year 1 maths just broke me. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, I am not going to let this break me. These kids are going to be educated all the way through homeschooling. And instead of sitting back and looking at the whole situation, I just drilled down, this is what the experts say, this is what I need to do, the teacher wants this work done. And what ended up happening was, I remember just looking at my cold cup of tea and these massive tears just falling down into my cold cup of tea, and the kids looking at me like, what the hell has happened to poor mummy? And Tim was in his office in a spreadsheet, and they came running into him and goes, Daddy, there's something wrong with mummy. She's having a meltdown. And it just reminded me, and I want you to take that tonight, is that sometimes best practice just has to get thrown out the window. And we just have to do what's best for our mental health. We have to do what's best for our family's mental health. So the last thing I want to do tonight is add any pressure, is set any expectations, and suddenly you walk away feeling overwhelmed, because that would be a failure on my part. What I want to do with tonight is I want to show you some options. Some of them are going to resonate with you. Some of them you're going to, high five yourself and say, well, I'm already doing these, which is great. And I just want you guys to really take everything I say with a grain of salt as how it's going to fit into the very delicate ecosystem of your family. Okay. So with that said, okay, here we go.
And Amelia, I just want to jump in and let you know that it looks like eating and nutrition is the clear winner in terms of what people are most sort of interested in helping their family get better at. Probably followed closely by mental health and then screen time as well. If that helps.
Fantastic. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you for that. And I'll keep that in mind as we chat through today. So I'm going to talk about one game changer, which is effective habit change. And this goes across everything we talk about tonight and all the great goals that you guys have put forward. There's a brilliant book called The Power of Habit Change by Charles Duhigg. And his book is a lot about in the workplace. So this habit change works in the workplace, but it obviously works with any kind of habit change. Now, Duke University shows that we spend 45% of our waking hours in a habitual state. So in other words, let's just call it half. Pretty much half our waking life, we are going through habits that we have learned over time. Okay, it's called neuroscience and behavior economics. And so when we're in habit, things feel effortless. Things just fit. They work. That's why you have those really annoying healthy people that, it seems like everything is effortless. They just get up and exercise, and they just, naturally eat lettuce and naturally don't crave the sugary foods. These people have, for whatever reason, probably through the way their parents raised them, the habits that they have formed are healthful habits, are habits that are helping their health rather than hindering their health. So our goal is with our lifestyle that we want to create pretty much 50% of what we do. We want those habits to be serving us and serving our families, okay? But for a lot of us, that's not the case. So we have to actually elicit habit change, all right? And here's a great 5-step process for doing that. So step 1 is the big why, okay? What is the reason that you want to improve your kids' mental health, that you want to improve their nutrition, help manage screen time? I laughed, my sister Kate, her big why, she said, to keep my daughter off the pole. And I laughed so much when she told me that, because, you know, everyone's got their own version of that. She was basically saying, keep my daughter out of trouble, whether it's off the ledge, whether it is out of jail, or whether it is, you know, giving them the gift of a healthy life that my family, you know, gave me when I grew up. But I remember in 12WBT, we had this beautiful member, and she struggled with her weight her whole life. And her doctor said to her, sweetheart, you are not going to be there for your son's 21st if you keep going the way you are. And for her, that was her trigger moment. That was her big reason. So she got her Thomas the Tank Engine. Her son loved Thomas the Tank Engine. Got a Thomas the Tank Engine bandana, and she wrapped it around her arm. And whenever she exercised, she had that on her arm as her reminder for the big reason. So I want you to, you know, and it might take, you might be lying in bed tonight thinking about what is your big why for that goal that you have. Okay, the next one is your trigger. So what triggers the behavior that you are trying to change? And usually there are 5 main triggers. So location. So for example, every time you pick your kids up from school, they want to get the hot chips or they want to get the ice cream. So it could be a location. When they walk in the door, they just want to, you know, eat the junk food. When they get in the car, they just want the phone so that they can go on the screens. It can be time, so a time of the day. It can be an emotional state. So every time my child hurts themselves, they want a cookie, because when I grew up, every time I hurt myself, instead of being given a big hug or a Band-Aid, I was offered food as a comfort. So now every time my child feels pain, they look for food to comfort them. It could be an emotional state. It could be other people. Every time I go to grandma's house, they just let me jump on YouTube all day, or they just feed me all this junk food. It could be also the immediately preceding action. So something, so every time we go to swimming lessons, we walk past the cafe and get hot chips on the way out. So what are the main triggers? So say it's improving nutrition. Pick the one time of the day that you feel like your nutrition is, your family nutrition is at its worst for whatever reason. What is the trigger for that? Okay, the next one is a micro habit. And this is a really interesting one. And what I've learned with families and health with a micro habit is a lot of it is about preparing before, so that your micro habit can be less than 60 seconds. Because what Charles says in his research is, if this habit change that you're going to replace the habit with takes longer than 60 seconds, it's often too much to do. So you're setting yourself up for failure. So it might be as simple as my kid wants ice. Every time I pick them up from school, we've got in this habit of going and getting, you know, a snack or ice cream. So it's like, well, the habit is that in my online order, I got squeezy yogurts, and I'm going to grab one as I run out the door, less than 60 seconds, and I'm going to have that as the replacement. Or I'm going to drive a different way so we don't go past that particular ice cream shop. So what is a habit? What is something you can replace it with? A micro habit that's less than 60 seconds. Then you have a effective practice. And the beauty of families, and the bane of my life, is like Groundhog Day. Every day, repetition. It's, you know, same shit, different day. But what's great for habit change is that's what we need, repetition. So, hey, you know, we're going to practice that. We're going to grab the squeezy yogurt every day, or we're going to drive the different way. You will get lots of practice at this, and therefore it doesn't matter if we fall off the wagon a few times. And it's those, you know, and that's that idea of getting the small chunks of this. The big goal is improving my kids' nutrition, but the small chunks are those daily little habits that we do. The big goal is my kids' mental health, but the small chunks are they getting sunshine? Are they exercising? Are they off the screens, reducing their screen time? All those little small chunks. And then, of course, you have a plan for when you do fall off the wagon. So you know what, guys, tonight, I'm so overwhelmed and I've got a work meeting. We are just, we're turning the screens on and you're all just going to have screen time. But I just want to be clear with you that tomorrow night we're going back to what our rules are. Okay, so I really like these. You may want to jot down the 5, but they're a really good way to just help make habit change a little bit more achievable. All right, are we moving? Yes. Okay, so we're going to start with screen time. So the big why we spoke about before, that red line there to me is the big why. So that red line you're looking at there is depressive symptoms in girls in year 8, year 10, and year 12. So we start in the 90s, and you can see 95, 96, there's a little spike when the heroin chic phase happened, when everyone was getting super skinny and starving themselves. And then you see throughout the rest of the 90s and the first decade of the 2000s, you can see that depressive symptoms weren't too bad. I'd love you to pop in the chat box what you think happened around 2010 to 2012. What do you think was introduced that that has seen this spike? You see social media use to go up. You see internet hours go up. I'm assuming you all know what the answer is. You see depressive symptoms go up, and that's smartphones. So to me, this is, for me, just so alarming. And with boys and gaming, there's a similar chart as well. So yeah, for me, I just have to think of this chart, and managing screen time, I get my big why from that. So a 2015 poll by the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne identified children's excessive screen time as the #1 concern for parents, overtaking more traditional concerns such as obesity and not getting enough physical exercise. And we can see why. And it goes to adults as well. Gosh, this, I was, in a lot of my research, looking at screen time in kids, and, I think about myself as well. There's 2 types of what we call approval porn and danger porn. And it's a very generalized term, but basically girls tend to seek approval. That's why they tend to be more drawn to social media, to farming out likes. They are looking for that approval. Boys, and teenagers in particular, are looking for danger. They're risk takers. Their hormones are structured in a way as they hit puberty to leave the nest, so therefore take more risks. And so they seek danger. They seek that dopamine hit of adrenaline rush and danger, and hence why gaming tends to be a little bit more popular in the boys. So I'm going to go through, David Gillespie is a really interesting guy. He's quite controversial, but he wrote a fascinating book called Teen Brain, and there's a lot of interesting research in that. And I'll talk through some of those in just a moment. But I just want to start by giving you one really simple hack for managing screen time for those of you that have Apple devices. If you have an Apple device and your kids have Apple devices, whether it's an iPad, a phone, an Apple Watch, go into settings and make sure that they're all hooked up to your family sharing on here. So Lockie, my 9-year-old, I got him an Apple Watch, and the reason why I chose a watch because I'm trying to delay getting a phone for as long as possible, but he's walking to school on his own. He's having play dates on his own now in the afternoons. So I like him to have this watch. So you get their device, you can add different family members and add devices, and then use this downtime option. And if I know Androids have a similar thing as well, I just don't know exactly the mechanisms behind. But basically what you can do with downtime is you can schedule it. So every day I've scheduled downtime from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. And in your own downtime, you can disable it. But what I've done is I'm blocking it. So basically he can't disable downtime during those times, and you can customize it. So if it's the weekend, you change the times around, but that at least takes a little bit of pressure off. And obviously you can do that with your other devices, switches and things like that. You can set the limits. David Gillespie says you cannot manage a kid's screen time just by setting those on their own, but it does take a little bit of the heat off, and it does help. So Addiction is a really big issue, and David goes into addiction a lot in his book. But we know what addiction looks like in the brain. We've studied addiction. You can see in the neurotransmitters in the brain what happens when the addiction pathway is fired up. Now, exactly the same pathway, whether it's alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, porn, phones, sugar, that exact same addiction pathway is fired up. So children, particularly teenagers, that neural pathway is highly susceptible. In other words, think of it like laying down, think of a teenager's brain, and the neural pathways are like roads, okay? And when they hit puberty, it's like all the builders have come in and they are turning that garden path into a super highway, okay? And whatever habits those kids are doing, your brain is laying down that highway. So suddenly you've got a 6-lane addiction highway, if that's what your kids are doing every single day. So that's why when a kid becomes addicted, I can't remember if it's 2 or 4 times more likely to become prone to addiction as an adult. So we know what addiction looks like in the brain. We know how it progresses always to anxiety, followed by the depression. We know that device usage, particularly certain software, will fire those normal addiction triggers just like anything else. So that's what and I'm sure you've all watched The Social Network. If you haven't watched it, please watch it with your kids. Netflix, The Social Network. We all know that it will fire up these normal addiction triggers. We know why teenagers are particularly susceptible to addiction. And right now, if we don't control this screen time, we are literally addicting all those kids, every member of society. I mean, this is David Gillespie talking here. He's quite alarmist, but there is truth in what he's saying. Once you've wired the brain for addiction in adolescence, it is wired for that way of life, is what he's saying. Now, don't freak out because, again, he's alarmist, and there's a lot that we can be doing. So the guidelines for screen use is 0 to 2-year-olds 0, except for video conferencing. But just say 0. 2 to 4-year-olds, or 2 to 5-year-olds, it's 1 hour a day. And then older than that, it's 2 hours per day. That's the guidelines. And you figure that's kind of, best practice. That's what you're trying to aim for with your kids if you possibly have. So signs of addiction, you've probably been reading this as I've been yammering on here, but how do they, I'll just quickly touch on these because I think these are quite important. How do they react when you do take the screen away? Do they react like an addict would when something was taken away? Or, you've set the boundaries and you said, your 2 hours is up now. We had that chat. It is only going to be 2 hours, and they give it away. Are they being deceptive? Have they got a burner phone? Are they sneaking around? Is it a mood booster? And this is a pretty scary one, particularly if you've witnessed it, where your kid might be moping around and then they get on the game with their mate and they're just like, you never have seen them more animated. And then that loss of interest in other activities, the displacement factor. And I think this is a really big one, even though not all screens are created equal. What is it displacing? And sleep was an interesting one. Like when we went away on holidays and we pulled the iPads out for them. Every day, Lockie started waking up 15 or 20 minutes earlier, and until he was waking up at 5:30 in the morning and sneaking down and grabbing his iPad. As soon as we confiscated it, next day, slept until 7. What is it displacing? Okay, then this idea that not all screens are created equal. And I think this is really important because we do, let's face it, as parents, need to have a break from our kids. But are they sitting there on a 15-second TikTok, scroll, or can you put a longer documentary? And maybe it's a family rule that you set up where you say to them, you know what, guys, you can watch TV, but the minimum program length needs to be 20 minutes or longer. Because what we find is our kids, it doesn't keep their attention anymore. Don't be afraid to establish some really clear and concise rules and enroll your kids on these rules. So you as a parent will make the rule and the kid will follow them. And these rules should be punished. If the kid breaks the rule, there is a punishment, there is a consequence, so they know that they're not going to break those rules again. And that idea that those kids do need that 8 to 11 hours of sleep a night, my example earlier with kids waking up earlier or staying up later just to play. So please, when dealing with resistance, I really like to enroll the kids early, sitting down, having that conversation at the dinner table, if it's age appropriate, educate them, show them articles, show them some of those documentaries. Establish the rules up front. So for example, in our family, I tried to police it for a while at the 2 hours a day. In the end, we do no screens Monday to Friday. That's just the rules, except for homework, which is done on a desktop that is fixed. It's not done on a mobile device. So you make up your own rules, whatever suits. You as a family, you might go, that is absolutely not achievable. So that's fine. So you work out what is better than yesterday, but what is achievable in your family. You know, for me, it will be no devices in the bedroom. Agree on a consequence. If it's broken, lead by example, which is my hardest thing to do. And that concept of ask, tell, make, which is a little bit like the, establishing the clear rules. Like, you be nice about it up front, then you be clear about it. And then if they still don't listen, there has to be a consequence. You make it happen. So that's the screen time. And, I do feel quite passionately about this, particularly when a lot of you guys were saying mental health is a really big concern for you. Don't underestimate the impact of screen time on that mental health factor. All right, moving on. How are we doing for time, Abby? I actually don't have, I have got my phone here. Okay, we've got 30 minutes. That's good.
Yeah, we're fine. This is great. Right. So keep going.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And I'm sorry, I can't see what's happening in the chat. So will you just fill me in if there's anything I need to address in the chat at all?
I will. Just, I think a lot of what you're saying is really resonating, and a lot of people are starting to identify what their goals might be. A lot of chat about screen time, and just really a little bit scary, some of these stats, but really resonating, and really wanting some good strategies to help manage this stuff. So
I mean, look, you as your own family have to come up with what is going to be better than yesterday. And that's why I don't like saying, oh, well, we do this, or so-and-so does that. And even, if you listen to my episode with David Gillespie on my podcast, Healthy Her, I think it's called Managing Screen Time. He's quite hardlined about it, and he establishes these really clear rules. You might listen to that and go, that's just not achievable. But for me, it resonated with, like he said, I do the opposite. I have no screens at home, but then when we go on holidays, I take the screens with me. And he does the opposite, which I thought was really interesting, in that he doesn't allow screens on holidays. He said his kids every day, the first 2 days, we're so bored. And then suddenly they're out climbing a tree, or he's got 6 kids as well. So, but they are a little bit older. So I did say to him, like, you didn't have to have young children through this. So look, everyone's got a different take on it. I don't mind what yours is, but just as close as possible, the goal is to get it to those recommended guidelines of an hour for the 2 to 5 year olds and 2 hours to the over 5-year-olds. But I must say, as soon as we just ditched it Monday to Friday, I never get asked for it Monday to Friday. Weekends, but I don't mind if they go a bit, they've got sport on a Saturday, etc. So anyway, enough about screens.
No, it's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't be too alarmed, because, we're all in this together, but it really does make a massive impact on their mental health. All right. Eating healthy on a time crunch. So again, the big why. What's your big reason for wanting to improve your family's health? Maybe you were really lucky, and you got the won the ovary lottery, and you got raised by 2 super healthy parents who not only gave you the gift of good nutrition, but they taught you how to cook. They taught you about healthy eating, how to respect your body, and your big why, your big reason is to give that gift, to pass that gift onto your kids in a much more challenging environment because of all the fast food and Uber Eats and everything we have. Maybe that's your big why. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you, like a lot of our 12WBT members, grew up in a household where both parents were so busy, where there was a Red Rooster, a KFC, a Macca's down. I mean, imagine, your postcode is one of the biggest indicators of health, which is really unfortunate. But you can look at a postcode and very generally look at somebody's health and get a very clear snapshot, which is really unfortunate because it shows that it's a socioeconomic issue first and foremost. But say you grew up in a household where there wasn't much cooking that went on, where fast food was something that you had every single day, where you were allowed to go to the shops, where you didn't take a packed lunch to school. And maybe you've realized that these habits you don't want to pass on to your child, or you want to improve those habits for your kids, but it's really hard because these are your ingrained habits, and you like cooking is hard for you because no one ever taught you how to cook. I had a client who, with her very first spaghetti bolognese, she tipped the whole, she had the spaghetti cooking in the boiling water, but she didn't realize you needed to strain the spaghetti before you added the sauce, because like no one had taught her that. I mean, so, you know, like everyone's at a different stage. I talk of it as it like the rungs on a ladder when we talk about health. You know, if you think of health like the rungs on the ladder, on the bottom of the ladder is you're, I don't know, addicted to meth. Okay. There's no point eating organic food and having a really healthy diet if you're, you know, an alcoholic or a drug addict, you know. And then, okay, you're not addicted to anything. Fantastic. All right, let's move up. All right, you're eating absolute highly processed junk food. There's no point buying organic apples that you eat once a week if everything else is junk food. So that's what you've got to focus on. And then once you're up here and you're maybe eating a really healthy diet, but you want to level it up a bit more by going organic or whatever. So think of it like the rungs on a ladder, and where are you sitting right now on the rungs? And when some of the tips I give you tonight, some of you will be like, oh my gosh, you're recommending packaged food? How dare you, Amelia? Whereas others will be looking at going, oh my goodness, you're giving your kids like multi-grain bread. My kids will only eat white bread and nothing else. And that's totally fine. And that's why diet is a really hard thing to give advice on generally, because we're all at a different point in the rungs on the ladder. So, okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I'd love you with your diet, with your family's diet, to pick one element that you think is going to make the biggest impact. Is it breakfast? Is it that morning routine before they leave the house? Is it their school food? So crunch and sip, recess and lunch. Because can I just say that's a massive opportunity for super healthy eating. I'll come back to that in a minute. Is it that afternoon hangry stage, 4 till 6, or is it the family dinner? Tonight, because it's too overwhelming to fix everything, think of the one area that is going to make the biggest impact and just have that in your head as we talk through. Okay. Specific food and nutrients. I don't really like to talk, and you'll notice that over in the media and all of that, you'll see a general trend away from talking about specific nutrients and specific foods, because I think we're all educated enough to know that diet is much more broad than that. But I do want to call out a couple of really interesting factors. So number one, just so you know, kids should be having 5 different colored veggies a day and 2 pieces of fruit per day. So that's just like, a little tip. I think I'm jumping ahead because I say it later on, but what I do with packing lunches is I literally walk around my kitchen and house with a big chopping board, and I literally go tomato, you know, that's a handful of grape tomatoes, and I pick out my 5 veggies and I pick out my 2 fruits, and then I carry that into my lunchbox making spot, and I go, how can I get all these into their lunch? Because at least I know they've had the rainbow. I want to touch on iron, particularly those of you that have girls, and particularly those of you that have girls heading into puberty. So that Australian Health Survey, did I talk about the Australian Health Survey? No, I haven't. Okay, let me quickly tell you about this amazing thing that our amazing country does every 3 years. As a nutritionist, I just nerd out on it. Every 3 years, we do the Australian Health Survey. It's the largest, most comprehensive health survey conducted in Australia. It involves about 50,000 Aussies that do this really comprehensive testing, some of it with biomarkers, blood, and a lot of it through questionnaires. So the great news is that kids from a nutritional level, from getting the nutrients in, actually do really well in Australia, except for iron. So girls and iron, and when they hit that puberty stage, a girl's iron requirements increase by 5. And unfortunately, because of menstruation, but also because of puberty as well. And unfortunately, that's a really strong age bracket to aversion to meat, whether it be for ethical reasons, because of TikTok, or because of flavor preferences, etc. So kids, and the other one is toddlers. Toddlers can perform poorly with iron intake as well. So iron is something to really focus on. I popped in the chat in my notes here some of the best sources. Meat, obviously red meat, we know. Always add some green with it, or some bright red. So steak with broccoli and capsicum, because the non-heme iron in the veggies binds to the heme iron, and you unlock a lot more absorption of your iron. So whenever you have a steak, always try to have it with greens or reds in the veggies department. And zinc is another one that can be really low in kids and teenagers as well. And zinc is linked to both iron and zinc are linked to mental health as well. So if those levels are poor, it can lead to mood disturbances. So they would just be a couple of nutrients that I would really want to, like, specific foods and nutrients that I want you to call out. Everything else, don't freak out too much, because kids score really well. Okay, I'm going to move on to brain and immune boost as well. We're on the topic of specific foods. Our kids are learning and growing and doing so much. I spoke about the superhighway before, these neurological pathways, okay? It's called the sheath that gets put in those neurological pathways. It's called your myelin sheath. And that is nutrients such as omega-3s, omega-6s are what line these neural pathways. So if they're depleted, it's kind of like turning your super, slick highway into a bumpy road. So when they're doing their addition or they're remembering things, they don't have that really fluid pathway going on. So here are some great brain and immune boosting foods that you should just have a think about. Well, how much do I get eggs into my kids' diet? Could I just maybe boil 5 eggs and have them sitting in the fridge, and that's just something I can chuck in their lunchbox, or I can mash it up in a sandwich, or I can cook it. It's amazing how my kids absolutely hate eggs done a certain way. Like Lockie will not have a fried egg, but he'll absolutely adores omelets. So, like, go figure. Nuts, please. We all have, for some reason, we get this aversion to nuts because of allergies. And if your kids are not allergic to nuts, go nuts for nuts at home, because they're so packed with nutrients. I'm not going to say specific nuts, because all of them are great, and it should be a variety of nuts anyway, but we tend to not think about them because we've kind of been taught. But I love them in the car because they don't make a mess as well. And they're very nutrient dense and calorie dense as well, which is great for hangry kids in the afternoon. Greek yogurt's another one for gut health. And those purple, red, and orange fruits are the ones that have those polyphenols and those, essentially like a superfood. Okay, and then I'm going to touch on time savers, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute as well. But I'd love to know how many of you do online groceries once a week, because honestly, if you don't, they are an absolute game changer. So I have, and I'll show you on my next slide, I have 5 major grocery lists. I have what I call the lunchbox list, week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4 of the month. I have created a lunchbox shopping list. And basically, so each week of the month, they get something slightly different, and I don't have to think about it. I just go, yep, first week of the month, so I'll order that. Then I've got the pantry essentials, and then I've got the household essentials. And pretty much now for online shopping, I order it on a Friday, it's delivered on a Tuesday, and every week it's just set and forget. You just then meal plan for whatever your dinners are, and you add that on top. Online, as far as that paying it forward and those micro habits, just setting aside a little bit of time to pre-plan the week ahead is absolute game changer. So I can't stress those online grocery lists enough. Giving your kids age-appropriate jobs. So when Lockie was 3, we started this thing called Saturday Sizzles, where we'd spend some time on a Saturday, I'd actually go to the effort. I'd take 10 deep breaths and have him cook with me, which is, it's cute the first time, and then it's a bit of a drag after that. But do you know what? He now, as a 9-year-old, cooks us all breakfast. And he literally takes our order. We call him Chef Lockie, and he cooks everyone their eggs the way that they like it. And everyone's got a job. Angus, my 6-year-old, is toast boy. Ella is drink girl, and she goes and gets the drinks. And it's amazing. It's actually starting to pay off now. And I don't know, those of you with teenagers are probably laughing and shaking your heads going, oh, just you wait till they become moody teenagers and they won't even look at you, let alone do anything for the family. And you're probably right. But for those of you with young ones, like, get them involved while they're keen. Batch. Okay, that's self-explanatory, but it makes a massive difference. Those of you that find chopping veggies for school lunchboxes and the lunchbox rush so stressful, as you're chopping up veggies at dinner time, just grab an extra few bits and bobs, chop them up, chuck them in, Tupperware, and then it's ready to go the next day. Frozen fruit and veggies are your best friends. I literally put a handful of frozen peas in my kids' crunch and sit on a Monday when I've got no food in the pantry, and they eat it. And this whole idea of like, do block out your calendar. Literally, you pick a time where you're like, okay, I am going to meal plan for the next week. A great thing that we used to do in 12WBT that a lot of families really liked was they make, okay, Monday nights is our fish night, Tuesday night is our red meat night, Wednesday night is our meat-free night, Friday night is our fun, either takeout night or our, homemade junk food night, pizzas or whatever. But that way it's just takes a bit of the guesswork out. It's like, what night is it? Okay, it's chicken night. All right, what will we do tonight? We might do chicken kebabs tonight. But I find that's just another great way to just kind of make you think, not have to think so hard. And then I've touched on most of these ways to make it fun, but I like with my kids, I make things like a goal. It's like, sorry, Angus, you're just not ready for your knife license yet. You need to cut up 5 apples, or maybe not an apple, that's probably not a good one, but something a bit soft. And okay, you need to cut up 5 bananas and show me you're safe with a knife, and then you'll get your knife license. Or I even bought a little chef's hat for them, and I gave them their chef license. So just making funny games out of things. So like a variety chart where you say to your kids, guys, we want so much variety. We're going to see who's going to eat the most amount of fruit and veggies, and write down, what did you eat today? I ate raspberries, I ate blueberries, I ate bananas, and let's see in a week how many different varieties we can get. And then I've just found with the little ones, like, name it to game it. So like lettuce, for example, not that anyone's eating lettuce at the moment because it's $1,000, but I used to call, pig in a blanket. Well, I used to just call it like whatever we're having, like chicken in a blanket. And I'd say I'd put lettuce on the plate. I'd say, wrap your little baby chicken in his blanket so he doesn't get cold. And it's amazing when you just make fun of how they're eating, they just get that little bit more engaged. So with the little ones, just don't be afraid to really be silly with it. And, puzzle toast, cut your toast pieces into puzzles, all that stuff goes a long way to making food fun and getting more into them. Okay, so just some lunch boxes. Can you see up here these are just, you may want to jot these down. These are a couple of Insta pages to follow. I hope you can see those. Lunchbox Revolution, Kids Lunchbox. These are just great for lunchbox inspo. They're not always super healthy, but again, it's different for every person. But I always like these for just getting a bit of inspo if you feel like your lunches are a bit on the boring side. So tips for lunchboxing like a pro, those online lists. So one week my kids get a bunch of yogurts. The next week they may not have yogurts. I might get them cheese sticks instead. But I just rotate it. I've just popped some specific products up here. Again, horses for courses. I use this 9 grain because it's whole grain, so it's got those 9 grains in it. I would try, if you can, to wean your kids off white bread if you're on it. There's lots of, high fiber, or you've got this sort of white bread up one end, and then you go to the wholemeal, which kind of is white but a bit browner. But then you want to get to the one that's got the bits in it, where you can actually see all the bits in it. I like that one. I love popcorn as like a packet snack because it's a whole food. There's nothing else in it. And the great thing, this serious popcorn is made with coconut oil, whereas the others have the like hydrogenized oil or the vegetable oils, whereas this one is coconut oil. So it's that little bit healthier. So that is great for, for packet snacks. Messy Monkeys is kind of not as good, but it's still very high, much higher in fiber than a lot of the others. And the ingredients aren't too bad. So that's another one. Roasted fava beans. Again, these three are really high in salt as well. But, unless again, for some of you, you might be shaking your head going, I can't believe you do that. And then others are like, oh my goodness, my kids have, twisties or whatever. So I just find this is kind of about the middle ground. The fava beans my kids love as well, and they're really high in protein. So if you've got sporty kids or kids that are going through a growth spurt, those fava beans are great. And then mountain bread. If your kids get sick of sandwiches, these mountain breads, they're all different types. There's rye, spelt, corn, whole wheat. They're great. And you just smother them in butter, and then you smear your Vegemite on them, and then you just kind of roll them up and cut them up. There's lots of different ways. I will always put spinach in as well. Like I might do cream cheese and lay some spinach in, and they hardly even know it's there. And then you can just see here, these are all the different lunch boxes. If you want to DM me, I'm more than happy to share what's in each of those with you. It's nothing earth-shattering, and I've just done the Woolies one. I used to do Harris Farm, but it's getting so expensive now. Even Woolies is really expensive. And there's lots of great things you can do. Some of you are probably doing your weekly shops at the farmers markets and all of that. And feel free to jump in now, everyone, and share with each other what your great lunchbox like a pro tips are, because often it's something that one of you say that will resonate more than what I'm saying. So make sure you share as well with the group. Okay. All right. Exercise. I don't know about you, but I feel like this isn't as hard. Maybe those of you with older kids and teenagers, you might want to jump in and let me know how challenging it is. But I interviewed, again, a really interesting chat on my podcast with Jen LeCase's dad. It's called Raising an Olympian. And she's an Olympic steeplechaser, was in the last Olympics. And we spoke about what it was like to raise an Olympian. And I thought he was going to be the tiger dad. But what he said, and it really stuck with me, is like, when you've got the under 10-year-olds, he goes, go broad, put them, let them try lots and lots of different things, but don't put them in too much as well. Let them have that free time. So give them free time to, just play in the garden and just have fun and just bounce the ball around and be silly. When they become teenagers, you switch it, and you want to put them in as much as you can and keep them really, really busy. And that's when they start to specialize. And I thought that was really interesting. She's an Olympian, but she didn't specialize in running until she was well into her teens. She was doing netball and all sorts of other things. So with the young ones, don't, just because they're starting to play soccer and they're showing some, promise because they scored 4 goals last Saturday, don't just double down on soccer. Put them in tennis, put them in basketball, take them to a little athletics. So go broad. And you can see, my tip here, don't overload the schedule when they're younger, and do overload the schedule when they're older. Get social with it. And that goes for adults and kids. So don't just do the games, or go to the effort to organize a sausage sizzle or a catch up afterwards. Get social with the parents and the kids. It's really important for exercise to become engaging and long lasting for them. You want to really forge those friendships outside of school. And I'm hoping Candace is here tonight. Candace is a beautiful mum. She's also a physiotherapist to the elite netballers, the Swifts. And she and I became great friends through our daughters in gymnastics. And it's so beautiful to watch their friendship circle outside of school growing and flourishing. And some of the things, those girls are so supportive of each other. And I know that no matter what, if they have little friendship fires happening at school, they've got these networks outside of their school friendship circles to help with that mental health, to help them build resilience. And interestingly, a lot of you were talking about mental health tonight. You cannot underestimate the impact of resilience and what they call shame resilience. In other words, being resilient against feeling shame. You cannot underestimate the impact of exercise on building shame resilience, feeling ashamed because you didn't do well, you missed the goal, and also building resilience, generally speaking. So, sport, hobbies, exercise all fall into that bucket. And so think about your beautiful child or children and what really lights them up. Try to add that social element to it as well. And, I put carpooling in there because I've got 4 kids, right? So I have to lean on other people all the time. So at the start of every term, I become that parent where I call and go, oh, I see that your kid's also enrolled in training on a Monday night. Can we do a deal? I'll pick your kid up and my kid and drop them if you wouldn't mind picking them up and bringing them home. And of course, that 15 minutes in the car builds those relationships as well, and it saves you an extra trip. So, don't be afraid to be that parent that reaches out and tries to organize the catch-ups and the help outs. I actually don't mind asking for help because I think of it as a connecting activity. Okay, when it comes to the sport that your kid does play, 5 positives for every 2 negatives is just a really kind of fun, easy way to remember. Okay, it's kind of what do they call it? A star and a wish. What are the make sure you are building up their confidence, not just hammering them down all the time. And also that whole idea of personal goals, not comparisons. And I don't know if any of you have done little athletics before, but a couple of my kids have done little athletics, and they really drill home. They've got a great app that you go on to, and it shows your kids' personal best. And so it always, Lockie might come 4th in a race, but I'd be like, Lockie, but look, it was a PB for you. That was amazing. And it didn't take him too long to cotton on to the fact it wasn't just about how he went across the finish line. So I really like this idea of setting personal goals with your kids rather than comparing. So I've just thrown in some, fun structured ideas, but then also there's so many great unstructured ideas as well that you can see out there. And this is all about getting them out. I haven't spoken about nature, but if you can get your kids in nature as well, particularly we're talking about mental health, it's amazing the difference it makes when they are able to get out near an ocean or near trees in a park, or go through or take the dog for a walk, even, and just the connection to nature and to something bigger than their own little insular world makes a really big difference. All right, we're almost there, guys. How are we doing for time? Okay, powering through, we're almost there. Look, I don't need to tell you about the gift of sleep. And I don't know if anyone had it as a goal, because it makes a massive impact, and it's probably more relevant to a lot of the adults here. But there's a great episode that I did with Dr. Carmel Harrington, who's has a sleep clinic in Sydney. And so I'm just going to quickly run through a couple of the key takeouts that's really helpful when it comes to sleep. The body loves to fall asleep, and you'll get into a deeper sleep on a falling temperature. So whether it's a hot shower before bed or making sure that you cool the room right down, screen time down for 30 minutes. So especially the screens close to faces. So if you do with your kids do have some screen time, try to make it the big TV screen and something slow that goes for 20 or 30 minutes, a documentary, as opposed to something that amps them up. That consistent sleep time, that body responds really well to going to bed at a consistent time, and a consistent routine before bed. We all know that with babies, but it's the same with adults as well. If they're wired I always say, do get the zoomies out in a controlled way. Come on, guys, we can do 20 burpees. Let's go. 20 star jumps or whatever the zoomies are. If they are in that wide, crazy state, let them exert it out. And I love the Smiling Minds app. And then I just make everyone lay down either in their bed or on the floor, and we listen to the Smiling Minds audio for 3 to 5 minutes. Maybe they get to have an extra book of quiet time, or they do box breathing. Box breathing is a great one for adults as well, as particularly if you're not a meditator. And if you haven't done box breathing before, just sit up straight for me now. I'll do a really quick one. Okay, you take a deep breath in through your nose now. In. Hold your breath. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. And you repeat that for about 2 minutes. And you will get into that really beautiful restorative deep sleep. And the kids love doing it as well. Okay, time savers. So I've touched on teaching independence. There's a brilliant book I would highly recommend called 50 Risks to Take with Your Kids. And the whole premise of this book by Daisy Turnbull, Malcolm Turnbull's daughter, we have 2 hard deadlines. And those of you with older kids will know this. You have the deadline of your child turning 18 and being able to drink and drive, okay? And they need to have acquired a certain amount of life skills to do those things safely. The second deadline is year 7. They need to get to a point where they can be very independent. And so she gives you all these risks, which are basically resilience building activities from the age of 0. The first risk is your baby can't fall off the floor. And I love that. For those of you remember when you were a first time parent and you didn't want to put your kid on the floor, you didn't want to leave them alone, like put your baby on the floor. Have that shower. They're not going to fall off the floor. And then she goes through, and I'd love to spend time talking about them all, but the amount of independence, and you talk about these big decisions. Do I let my kid walk to school on their own? Teaching that independence goes a long way, and it helps with time saving because, you don't need to put their shoes on. They're doing all their jobs. For those of you that have that sort of 5 to 10-year-olds, are you their boss or are you their coach? So think of this as when you're walking out the door. Are you saying to them, put your shoes on, brush your teeth, put some sun cream on, or come here, I'm going to put your sun cream on? Or are you reframing it and thinking more like a coach? So how many jobs have you got? What are your jobs this morning? Oh, I've got to brush my teeth. I've got to do my hair. And it's amazing when you reframe yourself, not being their boss, but being their coach, how great it is to build their resilience and build that independence. And so sometimes maybe if there's been a bad night, you go, well, what could we have done differently tonight? Rather than saying, I wish you didn't do that. You shouldn't have kicked your brother like that. It's just being more of that coach rather than that boss. I spoke about calling in favors before. I spoke about the lists as well. So whether it's online shopping lists or your term lists on the wall, kids love lists, get them to write the list down. And then this idea of paying it forward as well. So just those little things like, the night before, put your instrument at the front door. Whatever, can you line your shoes up with their socks or whatever? So they're just some of my time savers. And talking of time, we kind of I don't know, do we have time to have a discussion, Abby?
Look, I think we probably have to wrap it up because we have gone a little bit over.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, no, it's been so informative. But I'm just thinking what would be great, because we've also got lots of questions that have come through, is maybe you and I can jump back on at another time in the coming days, Amelia, and do a bit of a kind of rapid fire Q&A and send that out to our attendees and cover off some of this stuff as well. Would that work for you?
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. And look, the best way to connect with me as well is DM on Insta. You can, I think I had my Insta handle up there. If you've got a really burning question, please just fire it on DM and I'm more than happy to answer it there. But I'd love to do like a follow-up because, and hopefully some of you that with the questions, hopefully some of you have jumped in and answered them as well, because a lot of this, as much as, it's it's lived experiences, and it's getting that consensus from everyone. I definitely don't have all the answers at all, and I'm so not perfect. So it's about, well, let's try to get that question answered for you.
Well, that sounds awesome. I mean, yeah, we can talk about it. We might maybe do like an Instagram live or something like that, but just
Yeah.
another way to really dedicate some time to this, because I love the sound of this activity, but I'm conscious of people's time.
Yes.
And as you say, we've had so many questions come through, but a lot of them have been answered as you've been talking through, which is great, and so much great feedback and input from our community as well. So I want to thank everyone for that as well. But Amelia, I mean, I'm getting so much love for you in the comments. Incredible as always. Everyone wants to see your shopping lists.
Oh, do they? Okay, but you're not gonna, I tell you, it's very underwhelming, like, honestly, but I'm more than happy to share them with you. But you're gonna be like, that's what a nutritionist shops. I thought she was gonna have activated almonds, and
it might be a relief. It might be a relief.
Yeah. And I hope that no one has felt overwhelmed by the chat tonight, because that's exactly what I did not want to happen. And that's why my really key take home message is pick one thing, and then you may even want to pick one element of that thing to start with. And whether it's next term, if your kids are at school, you're right, I'm going to set aside a couple of hours in the school holidays to really plan these lists out. I redo my lists usually at the start of the year, and then I kind of tweak them. But I pretty much, that's me done. And the feeling, you are like, I am like winning at parenting when I've done my lists.
I love that. We all need a bit of that feeling sometimes, don't we? Well, let's talk, and let's figure out what we can do really soon around this particular topic, and kind of around that activity, and how we can get these lists to the people that want them. So please be assured, guys, we are hearing you, and we're definitely going to work with Amelia. We do have another event coming up a little bit later in the year, which we're working on, which is really interesting, focusing on healthy weight management. But we'll definitely dive into a little bit more content that we covered tonight in the coming weeks, because it is so, I'm personally feeling very relaxed and inspired and hopeful, definitely not overwhelmed, quite the opposite. So thank you, Amelia, and I'm sure it looks like a lot of people in the audience are feeling the same way. So thank you so much for your time, Amelia.
No worries.
Those asking for a replay, we are going to get that out to you in the coming days, and please feel free to share it with anyone that you think may benefit. Thank you so much to our attendees as well for your questions and your engagement. If you do have any other questions, reach out to us or Amelia, and we will endeavour to have those answered for you in the coming weeks. We've put a link in the group chat box for wellbeing, which is what we talked about a little bit earlier, so you can understand how your nutrition is impacting your health, and also those links to follow along Amelia, check out her podcast, all of her amazing content, and we'll put all of this into a nice packaged up email for you tomorrow as well, so you've got everything you need hopefully in the one spot. And the final shout out I might give is for the drop-in Facebook community, because I think that could be a great place to start a bit of a thread around meal prep. And I saw some great recipe sharing inspired by you, Amelia, in the comments there. So we might get that going tonight.
Awesome. Also. Great. So good. Well, I hope to connect with you all again, and yeah, please let's all stay in touch, and appreciate your very precious time with me tonight. Thank you guys so much.
It was time well spent. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a wonderful night.